Hello everyone and welcome to the British Birthing Stories podcast. Each week I'll be speaking with a different mother about her story of childbirth. Let's get into today's story. Hello, quick one before we get into today's episode. If you are really loving the show, it would be amazing if you could leave us a review and follow wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you have any friends who are expecting, it would be great if you could share this on with them. In today's episode, we're joined by Kat, who shares two very different birth experiences. Her first birth took place in a birth centre where she had a gorgeous water birth, and then she had a planned home birth for her second, which turned into an unassisted home birth without any midwives there. And Kat also talks about what it was like having endometriosis and how that affected her conception journey. And then she also discusses what it was like losing her mum before she had her babies, and how that grief really impacted her motherhood journey, and what it was like not having her mum by her side in those early days in the postpartum. This is a really important discussion, but if this is difficult for you to listen to right now, please do come back to it when you feel ready. So let's get into today's episode. Hi, Kat. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. It's great to have you on.
It's great to be here.
Do you want to start off by telling us a bit about yourself, who's in your family?
Yes, so I'm Kat. I am 37. I live with my partner, Geraint, and my daughter, Seren, who is 3, and my baby boy, Yeyan, who is 6 months.
They're beautiful names.
Yeah, they're Welsh. Dad's Welsh, so
oh, gorgeous. Yeah. I was really going to say that, but I thought, no, you'll get that wrong. Don't mess it up. So do you want to start off, you've got two birth stories for us today. Do you want to start off with your firstborn and then let us know what your journey to conception was like with her?
Yeah, so with Seren, we'd been talking about trying for a baby for a while. And then I was going through some tests for endometriosis. And we decided just to kind of try and see what happens, because I was suddenly quite aware that it might not be as easy as I thought it was going to be. So we were really lucky actually. We were trying for about 6 months. And then I had a call with the consultant and she said, you've got deeply infiltrating endometriosis. Like, you can try for a baby, but don't get your hopes up. It's likely to be really hard. And that call was on the Tuesday. And then on the Saturday, I thought, I think I might be late. And I ordered a pregnancy test on Amazon same day. And me and Gez were watching it. We were tracking it on my phone, like get closer and closer. And I ran and did it as soon as it arrived. And it was a clear positive. And it was really, obviously it was exciting, but it was a bit of a shock because I kind of got it in my head after that call. Like, I don't know if it's going to happen for us. So yeah, it was a very quick turnaround in that week.
Wow. And so for anyone who might be listening to this wondering if they have endo, what were your symptoms or thoughts that made you think, oh, I think I might have this?
Well, it was the typical kind of very long journey to being diagnosed. I had a lot of like bladder symptoms for a long time, and put that down to just being the sort of person who gets UTIs often. And then during lockdown, I think it was, I started to experience like pain throughout the month. And it was pain all the time, really bad pain around ovulation, like really terrible pain. And then throughout the rest of the month. So I went to the doctor and got referred to gynecology. And I kind of cried on the phone because it was COVID. Nobody examined me. Nobody had seen me. And I said to the doctor, I was like, I think I've got ovarian cancer. I think that's what it is. And the doctor kind of laughed at me and he said, oh, it won't be that. And I said, well, if it is, you're going to feel really, really silly. So he said, well, I'll send you for a blood test. And it came back, the markers came back raised, which can be a symptom of endo, which led to an MRI and sort of diagnosis later than that. But it took, that process took maybe a year and a half. Yeah. The longer process was maybe 20 years. I don't know.
And
a long time.
What do they give you to treat endo? Is there any treatment for it?
No, painkillers. Because I was trying to conceive, there was no sort of hormonal option. You can have surgery, but there's no guarantee it will work. The sort of surgery I would have needed was quite invasive, quite intensive, and there was no guarantee that I would then conceive. So we just decided to kind of go on the waiting list for surgery, which was about 2 years, I think, and then just continue trying.
But you did conceive, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you must have been happy shocked.
yeah, so we knew we'd been trying for Seren. We knew that pregnancy was a possibility, but from that phone call where she'd sort of said it might not happen, I kind of read in between the lines and thought it's never going to happen.
Mm.
We'd gone to see a house that we couldn't afford. We put in an offer on the house that weekend, that day, thinking that, it'll just be us, so we'll just have loads of money. And then obviously found out that I was pregnant. So I was very glad that offer was refused. It was rejected.
Can get something slightly more within your means then, can't you?
Yeah.
So then how are you feeling in that first trimester, symptoms wise?
I got away with a lot of symptoms, to be honest. I was really lucky. I felt sick, but I never was sick. I was tired. It was just before Christmas, so I was able to kind of just sort of hibernate, really. And I think there was still some COVID kind of restrictions. I can't really remember. But yeah, it was just nice, actually. Nice to have like the little secret between the two of us, and just kind of hoping that everything went well. Yeah.
And then your birth care, were you going through the standard NHS midwifery route?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was that like for you? Did you have the same midwife, or was it kind of chopping and changing a bit?
No, so I had one named midwife who I saw probably more often than the rest.
Yeah.
But it was a community team at the local Sure Start Centre.
Okay.
And you would have your appointment, but it would be whoever was doing the clinic on that day.
How did you find that?
I I didn't mind it. What I didn't like was if I was expecting to see. So if somebody had said to me, I'll see you next week and it will be me, I didn't enjoy it if I went and it was somebody else, because I kind of had it in my head it would be this person. I didn't mind it because they were all really, really lovely. I was really lucky. I got such a good team in my local area.
And then what were your plans or expectations of birth? Did you know much about birth, and did you have a certain vision in mind?
Yeah. So when I was 18, I wanted to be a midwife. So I did so much research to kind of prepare to apply to university to be a midwife.
Wow, yeah.
And then I ended up doing geography. I don't know why. Long story, really. But I kind of had done a lot of research and was very interested in birth. So I knew that I would have liked a home birth if possible. I knew that I wanted to be in water. And I knew I wanted to kind of just experience it, give it a go and experience it as naturally as possible.
Mm. So what did that mean for you in terms of, were you thinking, okay, I want to be at a birth centre, or was it a hospital?
Yeah, so at the time I was in Oldham, and Oldham's got a really good birth centre, or at least I don't know if it is anymore, but it was at the time.
Where is that in the UK?
Northwest.
Okay.
Greater Manchester.
Cool.
And they're very sort of open. As soon as you say you want a birth centre birth, they're very open to it, and it's just kind of encouraged. And I guess that's kind of your route. And once you've picked that, that's where you're going, and that's a more natural. I don't like that term, like natural, but it's a more
hands off.
Yes, yeah, approach. Yeah.
So how are you feeling coming to the second and third trimesters of your pregnancy?
So I was feeling very stressed. We were moving house. We hadn't found a house, actually, so we were desperately looking for a house. We needed to move. So that wasn't ideal, but physically I was really, really lucky. I had a great pregnancy the first time around, very minimal kind of pain. I had like a neat little bump that didn't really get in the way too much. And I didn't really have any symptoms after the first trimester. I wasn't tired. I wasn't sick. Yeah, I was just getting big. I was just expanding.
You lucky thing. So, everyone expands, but the good pregnancy is lucky. How were you then, being a bit of a, I'm going to say birth geek, or like birth enthusiast, and having a real passion and interest in it? Were you then super on it with the kind of birth prep you did and hypnobirthing, all that, or were you just like?
So I'd wanted to be, and I looked into all of these like hypnobirthing courses, and then I mentioned it to the midwife that I was seeing, and she sort of said, like you kind of sound like you've read up on this, and you kind of sound like you know what sort of birth you want and what you want to pursue. She's like, so why don't you just buy the hypnobirthing book before you kind of commit to a course. And she lent me a copy actually, and I read it and I thought, I can take some of this. Some of it didn't really make any sense to me. Some of it did. So I just kind of took what I wanted from it. And I thought, I'm just going to see how I go. It probably wasn't the best preparation, but I did a lot of the breathing exercises. I think knowing a lot about what would happen really helps me because I didn't have any fear going into the birth. So that was the sort of the limit of the preparation that I did.
So then what were your first signs of labour?
So I was overdue. I was overdue with both my babies. And I'd had a sweep at maybe 41 weeks. And then they booked me in for another one. And what I hadn't realized was that if I went over 42 weeks, they couldn't, they would want to induce me and I wouldn't be able to go to the birth center. And all of this came as a bit of a shock to me. I was quite upset at this appointment that I just expected to go in and get a sweep and go home again. So I was explaining this to the midwife, and she sort of said, right, okay. And she gave me what I can only describe as an extremely thorough sweep. She was like, if that doesn't get you started, nothing will. But you need to just go home, close the curtains, get a takeaway, put on a film and just forget about it. Because your body is not going to go into labour if you're kind of tense and worried about it. So that's exactly what we did. I cooked a curry, which was the most disgusting curry I'd ever cooked in my life.
Damn.
And yeah, I know. And we still blame that really for sending me into labour. But while we were kind of watching a film afterwards, I started thinking, I'm getting period-like pains. They're only lasting for a minute or so. I'll just keep an eye on this. I'll just time them. And about 3 hours later, I thought, I'm definitely, something is happening. I said to my partner, I was like, I think things are happening. And then I lost my mucus plug, which was something that nobody had told me about and I wasn't prepared for. And it was the grossest thing that had ever happened to me. And then I really knew that things were happening.
Mucus plugs are a bit weird, aren't they? Some people lose all of it at once, don't they? And others it kind of just comes away day by day. Did you feel like you lost almost all of it at once?
All of it at once.
Wow.
And it was really something.
Not forgetting that anytime soon.
Nope.
So what's your next thought process?
So it was midnight and I just thought, we've probably got a long time to go. So we went to bed. I was too excited to sleep really. But we did manage to get loads of sleep. I woke up about 3 and I remember thinking things are getting a bit more painful now. And I took myself off downstairs and kind of rolled around on the sofa for a little bit until, I don't know, early morning, 7:30, something like that. And then suddenly something changed. So Gez woke up to me on all fours on the bedroom floor, kind of mooing, saying, I think we need to go to the birth center. And it was quite quick from there on in.
Wow. So you did really well in kind of that early labor session. I suppose you'd done it actually all overnight and sleeping through it. So at no point are you thinking, I should wake my partner up now?
So I had an app I was timing the contractions, and it kept kind of Freya.
Okay, yeah.
And in between that, I had to tell you, I was half sleeping. I was in pain. I was timing the contractions, and it kept flashing up at me you're in active labor. Contact the hospital. I kept thinking, no, I'm doing this wrong. It's my first one. It's not going to be that quick. Not that it didn't hurt that much, but it wasn't hurting as much as I thought it should do at that point. So I was just I must be getting this wrong. And then, it kind of became, I was having to vocalize through them. And there was something in the back of my brain that was oh no, I do think now that we need to be moving.
So then did you just get straight in the car and get to hospital?
Pretty much. So I woke him up and I said, I can't ring them. You need to ring them and ask them what we do. And he rang the birth center and then he came back to me and I was on all fours in the bathroom at this point, mooing. And I was thinking, if I don't move soon, I'm not going to be able to move at all. I think this baby will come. And then part of me thought, no, don't be silly. Like you're still really early on. And he said, they've said we've got to get in the car or it's an ambulance. Like it's one or the other. So we managed to get in the car, and it was the worst. I think it was 12 minutes start to finish. It was the worst 12 minutes of the entire labor. It was horrible, just being confined. My partner drove at the speed of Moss, like the entire way there. Yeah, it was rough.
At this point as well, have you not lost your waters?
No, they went as we pulled into the hospital car park, all over Gez's front seat.
Oh, nearly made it.
Nearly. Yeah, and it was as dramatic as it kind of looks in the films, because they always say, well, it doesn't happen that way. And it didn't happen at the start of my labour, but it was a real pop, which took me by surprise. I didn't think that it would be.
Quite exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So then how are you feeling as you turn up to hospital? Are you at this point just in a complete other dimension, or are you kind of cognizant of like what's happening and that you need to get into a room as quickly as possible?
So at this point, I'm thinking we need to be getting on. And I think we got halfway across the car park and I had a contraction, and a paramedic clocked me, and he came running over and he said, do you know where you're going? And we said, oh, I think so. And he said, I'm going to get you a wheelchair because I don't want to deliver a baby in the car park again. So I said, okay. And he sort of whizzed us round to the birth centre, which was really helpful of him, because I don't think we'd have found our way. I'd have been wandering around the corridors, not really knowing what I was doing.
And what were the midwives like when you turned up? Could they tell instantly that you were quite far progressed?
Well, no. So I think I went backwards in the car a little bit. So I think that if I'd have stayed at home, things would have happened really quickly. And at the time, because I'd never done it before, I'd had this kind of, it wasn't like an urge to push, but it was kind of like my body sort of getting ready to. And I thought, oh, that's a bit strange. And then that stopped for a while once we got to hospital. When they examined me, she said, oh, you're about 5 centimeters. And I said, is that it? And she said, no, that's good. And I said, I really thought I was further along by that point. But yeah, they sort of got us into a room, got the pool running, gave me the gas and air, which was great. And then I was kind of just on, they don't have beds in the birth center. It's kind of like soft play kind of cushions almost, like, you know what I mean? Those kind of like
gymnastics kind of things that you can lean over.
Yes. So I was kind of hanging around on one of those, just having contractions and really going for it with the gas and air. And I said, I feel a bit pushy. And the midwife said, oh, you don't need to push yet. And I said, well, I'm just telling you, I'm not doing it, but my body is. And she was like, all right, okay, sure. And then I had another contraction and I made a noise, and she spun around in her chair and she said, what was that? Was that you? I said, yes, that was me. And she was like, fill the pool up. So they were really then like turning the taps full on, trying to get it, because I think something had shifted and my body was pushing by that point. So that happened quite quickly once I got settled.
And at this point, you'd only had that one examination, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what was that time period, do you think, from the examination to you reaching like full dilation?
So I would say that was probably about an hour.
That's pretty good. That is insane.
Yeah. An hour, maybe a little bit longer. We got to the hospital, like into the car park at 10 to 10, and Seren was born at 20 to 1. So it was quick.
I mean, at this point, are you using any hypnobirthing stuff, like, or are you did all that go out the window? Like, was it too quick to kind of use those tools?
Whenever I had a contraction, I was trying my hardest to kind of breathe through it, to get to the peak and then to let it go. And I was using all those kind of like mantras, like, every contraction brings me closer to my baby and all of that. That went out of the window pretty quickly once I got on the gas and air. And it was just a case of get through it, breathe it away, wait for the next one.
Did you feel like the gas and air ever stopped working for you, or was it good the whole time?
It was good the whole time. It was great. Yeah, I was asleep in between contractions once I got in the pool, because I was I was off my face really on the gas and air, but it was wonderful.
Gas and air is a joy. If
Yeah.
you haven't tried it, ladies, not everyone likes it, but look, it worked for me.
Works for me too.
What I was going to say is, so you had this really lovely labor that, you arrived at hospital and you were a bit worried that it was going to slow down, and then it picked up really quickly. At any point, were you like worried or concerned, or did you just feel completely at ease in your body? And what kind of, for anyone that's listening going, oh, like, I don't want to arrive to hospital and have the same thing happen to me. I guess what kind of movements or positions and stuff were you doing that you think helped you progress to 10 centimeters?
So I think I felt completely comfortable when I got to the hospital. Once we got into the pool room and I knew that I was kind of going to get what I wanted, I felt totally comfortable, and I think that helps.
Safe.
Yeah, and they settled us with two midwives, but one was a student, so she stayed with me the whole time, and she was incredible. And I really liked her and felt really comfortable with her, so that helped. I spent most of the time on my hands and knees, or bent forwards. If I was stood up, I was kind of bent forwards whenever I had a contraction. So much so that I'd been leaning on my thigh with my hands, and then after the birth, I noticed I had like fingerprint bruises on my thigh because I'd been digging in that much. But yeah, forward. I can't remember. They say forward, open, all of that. That kind of just came quite naturally. That was how I wanted to be.
Yeah, there was a midwife I spoke to recently about her birth story, and she said like the acronym you can use, I think she said UFO, upwards, forwards, open.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Like that.
I might have that wrong, so just double check it. But there is some kind of acronym like that, which was that I'm just really interested because like it's incredible to have progressed in that time period, especially as a first time mum. That's so good. And like, did you find the student midwife that because she's a student, she was like super helpful and like, or was she kind of more hands off?
She was very hands off, which was, she sort of got the measure of what I wanted quite quickly. I didn't go in with a written birth plan. There were a few birth preferences in my notes, but it mainly amounted to birth centre birth, pool if there's one available, gas and air. So she sort of got the measure of me quite quickly. I read somewhere, I say that like I didn't look at Instagram or TikTok or something, but I saw somewhere that you either give birth like a cat or like an elephant. So elephants give birth like surrounded by the herd and like with a lot of people around them, and cats like to be off in their own little private place. And I definitely give birth like a cat. So she just allowed me that kind of space. She didn't do any more checks, any more internal examinations. She just kept an eye on what I was doing and picked up on, I guess, the noises I was making and the shifts in my body language. I don't know, but she was incredible.
Yeah. And would you say then for the majority of your labor, you weren't having a huge amount of coaching from midwives anyway? You were just kind of like doing your thing.
I don't remember them saying anything to me apart from sort of they needed to check the baby's heart rate at one point, little things like that, but they were so quiet, like they were so unintrusive, like just really on the periphery of my awareness, really. And the only time that she actually said anything that kind of would be construed as coaching was at the very end, where she said, all right, I can see the head, so we're gonna she didn't say not push, I think she said little pushes, or she asked me to pant. There was absolutely no chance, like the baby was just doing what she wanted to do. So, but that was the only thing she said.
From what I've heard, and this is just what I've heard, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but that they do that to kind of help your perineum, don't they?
Yeah.
It's to kind of, so you don't like potentially have a bad tear or something like that. I mean, I'm sure women have done small little pushes and still teared, but I think it probably helps. So I've digressed a bit here. So would you mind going back for us to the bit where you get into the birth pool, they're telling you're telling them you're ready to push. Did they check you at that point then to check you at 10 centimeters?
No, they didn't. I think they just went off, what was happening.
And what was your husband doing throughout the labor to help you? Was he hands off, or was he doing certain massages or anything like that?
He was really hands off, and I think he would have liked to have been a bit more hands on. But he was just there. He was present. He was next to me. He held my hand, but I was not there. I was somewhere else, and I didn't really want or feel that I needed any sort of support in that way, or like physical touch or anything like that to help.
Sounds like you didn't need him. Sounds, his presence was enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he made up for that with the next one. But yeah.
So you're in the birth pool. What was it like, that transition period for you? How did you feel? Did you feel much of that shift?
I didn't. So I was really expecting to feel something. And I don't know if it's the timing of when I got into the pool, because that was like magic. Getting into the water was such a relief. And I don't know if the timing of that kind of coincided. I don't think it did, but I didn't feel necessarily a point where I was like, this is definitely transition, or a point where I felt like I wanted to. A lot of women say they want to go home, or they don't feel like they can do it anymore. I was kind of like a grim determination, like it's happening. Let's kind of just push through.
Did it feel nice to change to the pushing phase in terms of like you focusing on that new thing?
Yes. Yeah. It was a very different sort of pain. And I was amazed by how I had no control over it whatsoever. So my body was just doing it, and I wasn't actively, because I'd been really worried prior to birth that, well, how will I know how to push? I didn't need to worry about that. My body just did it.
So you basically had, from what I've heard, like the fetal ejection reflex, where your body just, I heard someone describe this the other day, actually. They were like, it's like vomiting out of your vagina. Like,
that's exactly what it is like. That's the only way you can explain it.
But vomiting is a horrific feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel nice when it was happening, but I had zero control over it.
How did the crowning stage feel?
I remember feeling that kind of like ring of fire, and that was the only time that I actively tried not to push, because I was like, oh, I don't like that. That hurts. And the midwife had said to me, no, you need to push into that feeling. I didn't get a chance after that. I felt it. I tried not to. My body pushed, and the baby came out. She came really quickly.
Wow.
Yeah.
All in one go?
I think she was head, and then the next contraction maybe shoulders, but I don't actually remember. I think she might have come out all in one go. I'd had a lot of gas and air by that point.
You're somewhere else at that point, aren't you?
Yes.
So you birth her, you're in the pool. How do you feel in that moment?
Incredible. Incredible. I felt so powerful, and so many people have said, it's your first baby, like you probably won't be able to, this probably will happen, this might happen. And actually it had all just gone well, and it was such a nice feeling. We hadn't found out if she was a boy or a girl, so they passed her between my legs, and me and Gez kind of looked together to see and found out she was a girl. And yeah, I'll never forget that moment. It was lovely.
Were you feeling all right kind of after that pushing phase? Did you feel like you had a kind of, all the adrenaline was still running through you, or were you just feeling knackered?
No, I felt great. I felt like I could instantly do it again. In fact, while I don't remember, I was still in the pool, I was holding Seren, and I looked at my partner. I said, that was a horrible term. I said, that was a piece of piss, that I could do that again. And I do think it was a gas and air speaking, but I felt like I could do it again and again. Yeah, really running on adrenaline, I guess, by that point.
I've heard and read that it's like a drug for women, that oxytocin rush that you feel post-birth, especially I know that you can still experience it in other forms of birth. Obviously, like even if you have a C-section, you're going to feel a rush of love, right? But you're not getting the same hormonal thing that you're getting if it's, a vaginal delivery like that in a physiological way. So that's, oh God, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, I feel very lucky, because that was a a really good first birth, I think, to have.
Yeah. And how was she when she came out? Were her APGARs and everything all good?
Yeah, she was fine. She was kind of sort of just looking around. I think she was a bit shocked by the whole experience because it had all happened quite quickly. But yeah, she was absolutely fine.
And then how was your feeding journey with her? Did you plan to breastfeed?
No, I didn't. So I have always felt really grossed out by breastfeeding for as long as I can remember. And when you have a birth sense of birth, I think they kind of think you're
Assume.
going to want everything kind of like natural and crunchy. And I kind of said, I don't think I want to breastfeed. And my midwife said, that's absolutely fine. We'll just put it in your notes. We won't hassle you. You do you. And then I kind of thought about it and I thought, I want to give her the colostrum. I want
Mhm.
to give her that opportunity, I guess. And it just kind of happened quite naturally when we got out of the pool. They wrapped us up and I fed her. And then we carried on with that. We did like combination feeding with that and formula for 6 months. And then she went just onto formula, it was a really nice feeling. It really surprised me.
Yeah. So do you mean a nice feeling as in you actually enjoyed breastfeeding more than you anticipated?
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't have expressed or done anything like that. That
Mm.
still gives me the ick. But yeah, I was really, really pleased to be able to do that because it was such a bonding experience
Yeah,
with her,
that's
even though I
amazing.
wasn't doing it, full time.
And also, we're so lucky. We are so lucky that we are able to feed our babies in any kind of way, and we have the means to
Hmm.
in this country. Like, there are so many places where women are not as lucky.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
then,
absolutely.
how was your recovery? Did you have any tears?
I did. So I had a second degree tear,
Yeah.
um, which probably because she just came out like a cannonball, really. But they were able to repair it in the room in the same room I'd given birth in, which was great. And that took so they sort of say, oh, that'll take 6 to 8 weeks to heal. That took a lot longer in terms of the scar tissue and the pain and all of
Mm.
that. But it healed well. And generally, like other than that, physically, I was fine.
How were you feeling emotionally? So, being first baby and all of the emotions you have kind of in that, day 4 time. Where was your head at?
Yeah. So that day four hit me like a ton of bricks. It was, I was expecting it. I was expecting the hormone drop or however it is that that works. I was expecting the baby blues. I think for me, so I lost my mum, I think 5 or 6 years before Seren was born. Um,
Sorry.
Thank you. And I think it just brought up a lot that I thought I'd already dealt with.
Mm.
And that surprised me, but it really did knock me for six, just for a few days. But it was very, very intense. I wish that they sort of talked more about that when you like before you give birth. I think it would be useful to know.
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's any midwives listening that could, get in touch and tell us a bit more about that because it would be interesting to do an
Mhm.
episode maybe on what that emotional transition is like. Because yeah, I think for some women it's like it happens day 2 or it happens day 3. I don't know if it coincides with the milk comes in. I'm not really
Mhm.
sure, but I can imagine as well. It must have felt really hard and bizarre for you becoming a mum yourself, and then like not having your mum there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
it was, and I just hadn't anticipated that at
yeah.
all.
Really tough. Oh, I'm sorry for that. Did you speak to anyone about it? Did you get any counselling or?
I did eventually, because so I felt very, very sad day 4, 5, 6. And then everything, picks up again. We moved house. There was a lot of distraction. But that kind of, some of the stuff around my mum persisted for a little bit longer. So I think maybe at the 8 or 9 month mark, I did get some counselling, which was kind of useful just to process it a little bit.
Mm.
And I guess just to have somebody completely unconnected to that situation just to kind of bounce things off.
Yeah, it's such a crazy shift when you become a mother for the first time because you just feel like you're entering like this other dimension, don't you? Where like
Hmm.
your whole life has changed, but everyone's going on about their lives the same, and you're like, doesn't
Yeah.
anyone realize how big this is?
Yeah. Yeah. And you just kind of expected to get on with it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, huge changes.
Well, let's move into your next birth because you have another beautiful child. So do you want us to talk us through that conception journey?
Yeah. So after being told with Seren that we might not be able to conceive, we were a little bit more worried about it this time. We didn't know if Seren was a fluke or not. So we knew we only wanted an age gap of between kind of like 18 months and 3 years, ideally. So we did start trying. And again, it only took us 6, 7, no, it took us longer this time, maybe 8 or 9 months.
Okay.
During which time I was starting to get like quite concerned because the first time around it was let's see what happens, whereas the second time around, you know that you desperately want this child to arrive and you want the whole experience again. And
And
I
you're
found
older.
that quite tricky. And I'm older, yeah. So that was the other thing. I was a good few years older, and yeah. So
what age were you when you conceived your son?
good question. 30, 30, 35, 36?
Quick maths.
35. I was 35.
Okay, yeah. So mid-30s, so like...
Yeah.
I'm not a fertility specialist. Doesn't seem like a bad mid-30s. Like,
not really old, but it's also, you get fed a lot of kind of information at that point as well. Fertility really starts to decline, and I felt like I was already working with reduced chances, and yeah, so there was a lot of anxiety around it.
And every month that ticks over feels like a long month.
Yeah.
So you fall pregnant with him. How did you feel in that moment, and what was your first trimester like with him?
So I was absolutely thrilled to fall pregnant the second time. The first time obviously came with a lot of anxiety and a lot of worry, and like, will we be good at this? And will we like it? Will we enjoy having children? Obviously we wanted children, but I don't know, I was filled with this kind of, will I be a good mum kind of anxiety. This time around, I didn't have any of that because I knew that we could do it. So it was just pure excitement, pure enjoyment. My first trimester with Ye was trickier because I had a 2-year-old. And what I hadn't appreciated the first time around, when I was like, oh, I'm so tired, this is so hard, was that actually I could go to bed and I could rest whenever I wanted to. And with a toddler, I couldn't. So I definitely felt considerably more tired.
Yeah. I feel like that's one thing you don't think about as much when you're conceiving the second. You just think, well, you want it, right? And you've just got to crack on.
Yeah.
Were you planning the same birth for your son? What was your birth prep like?
So because I'd had a really good time with the birth centre birth, I decided I would like a home birth. So I made that kind of known at my booking appointment, and they put it on my notes. But other than that, the prep wasn't any different at all. I just I went back a little bit through the experience with Seren, did a few more of those like hypnobirthing like exercises in preparation, but that was about it this time around. Didn't have time for much else.
In your words, it should have been a piece of piss.
Yeah, exactly.
You're feeling confident.
Yeah.
So then you're signed off. Are you signed off for the home birth?
Yeah.
So all through the NHS?
Yeah.
Great.
And yeah.
So do you want to talk us through what those steps into that is like?
So I don't know if it's different. I think it probably is in other trusts, but in my trust, so I'm in Huddersfield, you tell them that you want a home birth, and that's it. So they don't have a dedicated home birth team. You just deal with your community midwife. And then when you have the baby, they send out the on-call midwife for that sort of day. This time around, though, I did see the same midwife at every appointment, and that was really, really, really good. Really enjoyed that continuity.
Yeah, so you saw a massive difference then in your care.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lucky.
Definitely.
How were you feeling coming into your third trimester with him?
Well, so that kind of confidence of, oh, that was a piece of piss, that definitely wore off. And I started to remember that it's actually quite hard work. Um, I also found it physically a lot more tricky this time around. I was tired, I was anemic, but not anemic enough for an infusion, but kind of too anemic to really function day to day.
Yeah.
That was quite hard. And the added bonus of having Seren running around and kind of, yeah. So physically, it was much harder.
Did you feel bigger? Did you know he was a boy?
I didn't know he was a boy. No. I did feel bigger this time around and much more quickly as well. So with Seren, I felt like it got kind of tough in the 2 weeks that I was overdue, and that was it. Whereas with Yeyan, it was from about the third trimester, I was big and I was struggling to get in and out of the car and things like that. Like, yeah.
So then, do you want to talk us through your first signs of labor with him?
Yeah. So I went overdue by my NHS dates by 17 days. Um, so he was due on the 19th of June, and I had asked my dad to be around and to not book any holidays so that he could take Seren, and he said that's fine. And he booked a holiday for 3 weeks after that, which we thought would be absolutely fine, and that was coming up. So he was due to go away on I think the Tuesday, and this was the Saturday beforehand, and we were starting to panic a little bit. And we went out for coffee with our friends who lived just across the road, and she sort of sat me down and said, right, listen, we've talked about it. And if you need us to take Seren, if you need one of us to come and sit in with Seren, if you need anything like that, this is how we're going to do it. And we're happy to do it. And she kind of just sort of took charge of that situation. And I think my brain had been kind of worried about the childcare situation and about all of that. And something in me just relaxed. And I genuinely think that kickstarted my labor, because we went home and I started with the same kind of period like pains that I'd started with Seren that were coming and going, and kept an eye on it. And by about 10 o'clock, I thought, yeah, things are happening now. So I sent Gez down into the kitchen to to blow up the birth pool to start off with.
Did you have any, because if you were 17 days over, I can't remember what it is that when they like to, do an induction or whatever, did you have pushback over kind of carrying to that date? What was that like?
Yeah. So again, I don't know if this is a trust thing, but they said to me, oh, we'd like to schedule induction at 41 weeks, and we'll get that booked in. And they said that to me before I was overdue, well before I was overdue. And I said, oh, I don't want to do that. And they said, oh, well, it's just helpful to have it booked in. And I said, but unless there's a medical emergency, that's not for me. Like, I wouldn't want to do that. So I kind of pushed back on booking that induction initially. And then once I went over, they gave me quite a few sweeps, and I was happy to kind of have those because it had helped with Seren. Once I went over 42 weeks, they wanted to monitor. So I went for a scan, and the consultant sort of said, I would want to induce, but there's no medical reason for us to do that. The scans are okay. They show good blood flow. They show good liquor, whatever it is that they check for.
Placenta seemed to be working okay.
Everything, yeah. So she said, just monitor it. And I was a bit worried that it would stop me from having a home birth. And she said, oh no, we'll send somebody out. It's your right to have a home birth, but they'll be much more aware of like risks. So she said, don't be surprised if they suggest transferring in when they come out to see you. And that was pretty much that. Yeah.
What a great care provider that they were so understanding and not just dismissive, like, well, this is our policy. They seem to look at your whole birth and pregnancy holistically and make a fair decision on the basis of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that consultant would have been very happy if I'd have agreed to an induction. My sort of thinking was that rather than induction, I'd rather have a planned section. That's just personal preference. I know that I'm quite an anxious person, and the uncertainties around being induced versus a planned section, for me, kind of the benefits of that outweighed the risks. But I think partially it was that I don't think they wanted to do that. they weren't able to give me any information. So the consultant said, you're quite overdue. And I've never known somebody who's already had a baby to be induced and not go into labor. And I said, okay, that's fine. But how many of those labors then end up in, section
Interventions.
assisted? Yeah. And she couldn't give me the answer to that. And I thought, well, for now, by my dates, I wasn't over 42 weeks. I was kind of happy and comfortable with, I knew the risks and sort of I was happy with how I felt.
Yeah. So you go home from coffee and you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
the niggles.
Mm-hmm.
Talk us through everything.
So about 10 o'clock, I texted my dad and I said, you're not going to believe this, but I actually think things are happening. And he said, great, like they were on standby. But I said, for now, Seren's asleep. It's very early stages. We're just going to see how we go. So Gez blew up the birth pool. We didn't fill it up at that point. We went to bed. I couldn't sleep and I felt like things were ramping up. So about 4 o'clock in the morning, I phoned the birth center and I said, I'd like someone to come out, ideally. And they sent a midwife out. She arrived really quickly. She, it sounds horrible, but as soon as she turned up, I thought, I don't like you. There was something about her energy and her presence that I was just like, not keen on you. So she came in and she observed me having a couple of contractions. And she said, well, they're not really proper contractions. And I thought, well, I don't know, like I'll be the judge of that because they really hurt. But I had the TENS machine. I'm quite a quiet person until like it comes to the crunch with labor. So I was struggling and she examined me and said, oh, you're only 2 centimeters and there's been no change since your last sweep. And I thought, oh, well, okay, but I feel like something has changed. Um, and then she didn't ask about this, but she sort of said, as she finished the examination, she said, oh, I've given you a bloody good sweep there as well. And I said, oh, thank you, I think. Like I wasn't expecting it. She hadn't asked for consent. And I was a bit taken aback by it. And she said, I can stay if you want me to, but I think you should go to bed. It could be days yet like this. It could go on for hours and hours and hours. You should sleep and you should have some food. And I said, right, okay. And I waved her off and I thought, I don't want to see you again. Um, so we ended up sleeping. We had like a nap on the sofa for about an hour after she left, maybe an hour and a half. And I woke up and I was like, this is the real deal. I am in full blown labor. This is painful. So I went up to our bedroom and Gez went and got Seren up and dressed and ready and phoned my dad and said, you need to come and get her.
What time is this?
So Seren went over to my dad's at 8:30 in the morning. So we'd had maybe, it's the midwife examined me at say 4:30. And by this point I'm in a lot of pain, but part of me was thinking, well, that midwife said I was only 2 centimeters and I'm not really sure that this is the real deal. And she just got in my head a little bit. So I went off upstairs to kind of labor on my own for a little bit. And then Seren went over to my dad's my dad came and got her at 8:30 and Gez said, oh, I'll phone the birth centre. And he knocked on the door. I was in the bathroom at this point. He knocked on the door and he said, oh, the birth centre have said they've got somebody to come out now, but if it goes past 7 o'clock tonight, you'll have to transfer in because they don't have a midwife to cover that. And I was leaning against the sink and I said, this baby is coming before 7 o'clock tonight. I have no doubt about that. But I still didn't believe that it was so imminent. So Gez went back downstairs to carry on filling up the birth pool. And I was in the bathroom and I came out of the bathroom and I got on my hands and knees and I had another contraction. And I thought, oh, I started to remember from the last time, like my body is doing something here, like something is happening. And I thought, right, I cannot give birth here because I live in like an old terraced house. You open the front door and straight up the stairs, that's all you can see. And I thought, I just can't bear the thought of giving birth here and then all the neighbours walking past as the midwives come in. So I staggered down the stairs and I got to the living room, and I was on my hands and knees again, kind of over the sofa. And I suddenly became aware of the sensation of the baby's head traveling through my body. And I thought, oh, I am going to have the baby. So our house, the kitchen's downstairs. So I shouted to Gaz, I said, can you just come up here a minute? And he said, yeah, in a minute. So I said, no, can you come now? I said, and can you bring the scissors? So he said, sure, okay. So he got up and he's like, what's wrong? So I said, you need to cut my leggings. I couldn't stand up by this point. I just couldn't. I said, the baby's coming now. So when you have like the risk assessment appointment with the midwife, they tell you that if you start to give birth before they arrive, you need to phone an ambulance just in case. So Gez phones 999 and he's cutting off my leggings and he's saying, my partner thinks she's giving birth, I think is what he said. And I said, the head's out. And he took my leggings off and he said that Yayan was just there, just looking at him. So I was literally on my living room floor, like, this poor guy on the other end of the 999 call did not know what was going on. And we were just hysterically laughing because this baby had just turned up when he felt like it. And yeah, but that was that. I was a little bit worried because his head was out. I was a bit worried that maybe he might get stuck, like, and there wouldn't be anyone here to help us. But with the next contraction, out he came and he was perfect. Just caught him.
Wow.
Yeah.
And didn't know he was a little boy.
We didn't know he was a little boy. So Gez had wrapped him up in a towel and passed him back through to me. So we were just in awe of what had just happened. I looked at, he was absolutely covered in birth gunk. Like, we were both, it was horrendous. But we were just sat there on the living room floor with this tiny bundle. And this disembodied voice on the sofa of the 999 operator, he suddenly said, oh, is it a boy or a girl? And we were like, oh, we don't know. So we looked and it was a boy and we were so excited. And again, we were just laughing and this voice on the other end of the line was kind of laughing along with us. And it was a really lovely sort of 10, 15 minutes before anybody arrived, just the three of us and the ambulance guy.
How did it compare to your first birth then, in terms of like the pushing phase and all of that? Did you feel like it was the same kind of feelings?
No, it felt different. And I think part of that was because I wasn't in the water. So with Seren, I never felt that feeling of her head descending. With Yayan, I felt it. I felt him move through my body, which was the most incredible feeling. And then the pushing, and I think this is to do with the gas and air, the pushing with Seren was very much, here's a contraction, and at the end of the contraction, there was a pushing sensation. With Yayan, it was very powerful, it was very fast, and it was just happening.
Did you still feel it was like that fetal ejection reflex in a way?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Probably more so in a lot of ways, because I wasn't actively pushing, it was just happening. And I think I'd been kind of holding back on that. And then when I realized it was going to happen, I just went with it.
Did you feel like you did the same kind of mobility in both births in terms of like the way you're moving around, the way you're positioning yourself?
Yeah. So I spent all of my time either on my hands and knees or leant over at the sofa. When I was laboring in our bedroom, I piled all the pillows up and leant over those for each contraction.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah. And then when I went back in the bedroom, having given birth, I just looked at that pile of pillows and I was so grateful that I wasn't about to have another contraction. But yeah, like it's that sort of forward position again.
So how was your placental delivery with your son?
Fine. It was fine. So I'd been a little bit worried about that because with Seren, it took an hour.
Wow.
And yeah. So again, I think it was the birth center and I think they assumed that I didn't want the injection. And I didn't really think to sort of say, oh, just give it to me because I'm kind of done with this stage. And they had me kind of walking around trying to get the placenta out. And it was a whole hour of kind of, I'd rather just been sat cuddling my baby. Um, with my reduced iron and that sort of like delayed placenta with my first baby, they sort of said, well, you're at slightly higher risk of that happening again and potentially a bleed. So we would like to give you the injection once the baby's born. And I said, yeah, that's fine. So I was happy for that to happen anyway. But as it happened, he came and then the placenta came, I would say maybe 5 minutes later, totally intact. Everything was fine.
That's great.
Yeah. It landed right on the rug and ruined a very extensive rug. But other than that, it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what were your plans for feeding him after your first experience with your daughter? Did you kind of think you'd do combi again or?
That was exactly what we thought. It just worked so well for us the first time around. So that's what we went straight for this time and didn't really worry about it as much. Just thought I'll do as much as I can breastfeeding and we'll just see where we end up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he latch well?
Yes, he did, but he had a Tom tie.
Okay.
So that was diagnosed quite quickly and they were able to snip that for us. And then that really did improve things. But yeah, he went straight on the boob and was feeding really well actually and was gaining weight. It was just very painful.
And what were the sizes of your babies? Was he a lot bigger than your daughter?
My daughter was £8.10 and Yan was £9.3. So yeah, he was a bit bigger.
But both like fairly sizable.
Yeah.
Go you.
Big babies.
You have done well. Ooh, like I'm clenching now just thinking about it. How were you feeling emotionally after birthing your son? Because with your daughter, you had all the kind of feelings around your mum passing. How did you feel with him?
So with Yan, my midwife, the midwife I'd seen throughout my pregnancy, turned up, I think a couple of days afterwards, and she sort of said, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "I feel wonderful. I feel amazing." And she went, "Okay." And then I really crashed maybe a week after I'd had him. And the midwife said she thought it was like a little bit of a delayed reaction because I'd been on such an adrenaline high of like giving birth to him unattended and the crazy birth story. I think she was probably right. So I had a dip. Nothing like how it was with Seren. Like I was prepared for the feelings of grief it might bring up. What I really struggled with this time was suddenly having two children. I really missed my little girl, even though she was right there, but I missed being able to give her that one-on-one attention. And that really badly affected me for quite a long time.
What's the age gap between them?
So Seren was nearly 3 when Yan was born. Yeah.
How did she go with her little brother coming to the world? Was she all right with all that or?
Yeah, so she took to it like a duck to water. And it helps that she had been telling us the whole pregnancy, it's a boy. It's definitely a boy.
Oh.
So when she came in, my dad brought her home. And bless my dad, he hadn't said anything to Sarah and he'd not told her what really had happened. He'd not told her it was a boy or a girl. And he kind of just dropped her with Gez at the door and let us have that time as a family before coming back the next day to meet Yan. But yeah, she sort of wandered in and she was like, "I told you it was a boy." So she was like, took ownership of that. She calls him my baby. So yeah, she loves being a big sister.
And then just finishing up here, I'd like to ask this question of what would be the biggest piece of advice that you could give another mother? It can be like specific to your birth, or it could be just something that you've learned through motherhood. What would you like to share with someone else who maybe wants to have a similar empowering birth like you?
I think the one piece of advice that I would give someone is trust your instincts. In terms of what feels right for you and your baby. What was right for me might not have been right for somebody else. But I just had to go with how I felt. And that was really helpful to me. So certainly around the birth, trust your instincts and also do your research. I did a lot of research around induction and things like that when it came to sort of, 2 weeks on, just so that I could be aware of the risks and the benefits to waiting.
Oh, Kat, it's been so lovely to hear two really positive stories. And you just seem like such a natural at it.
I think I was really lucky with baby's position and the care that I received.
Yeah.
I feel super, super lucky that I've had the experiences that I've had. And thank you for letting me talk about them, because it isn't often that you get to kind of talk through your birth story, and it's just, I'll never stop banging on about them, particularly the second one.
I can see why. They're
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
I've been riveted, and it's just so lovely to hear that you had a really nice positive experience and you had some great continuity of care, and it's just been wonderful. So thank you, Kat.
Thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed that story. If you are loving the show, please do head over to your podcast app and click the follow or subscribe button. And better yet, leave us a review if you're really enjoying it, and then pass us on to all your friends who are expecting or you think might want to hear these stories. And I'll see you in your ears next week.